Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and CEO of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the Blended Podcast and founder of the Blended Pledge. Now, I'm super excited to be here with you today because we've got Christine Barnhart, the supply chain whisperer, all the way from Germany, and she's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. But of course, we need to give a bit of a shout out to our show sponsor, which is Secret Society of Supply Chain. Now, that is our free membership group. If you have not signed up, you want to run over there, or you can click the QR code in that top right-hand corner to access it. You can join it. We've got lots of conversations happening. I'm going to be sharing actually one of the conversations that are happening in our community just this morning because they're talking about what's happening in Asia. And of course, we're launching Asia really soon. And of course, I want to give a shout out to some of our newest members. We've got Tariq, Derek, James, Abigail, Lucy, Celeste, Rich, Harsh, Jose, Marcia, Mike, Adam, Fleming, Trevor, Divya, Greg, Hans, Ali, Crystal, Laura, and Karina. Welcome to the Secret Society of Supply Chain, and we're so excited to have you. Now, of course, if you're watching, we want to know where you're tuning in from. So make sure to put that in the comments, and we will give you a shout out. We'll put you up on the screen. And then if you've got any questions throughout the show, make sure to put those in the comments as well. And if you love what we're talking about today and you're loving the conversation, we love a good fire emoji here as well. So make sure to put those in the comments. Now, what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain? We've got a brand new episode. Now, this episode is with BlackBerry Radar and Gulf Winds International, and I'm going to be talking about a webinar that we've got coming up next week about this. Now, if you have any questions from this particular episode, and again, you can go to letstalksupplychain.com and use our AI interactive podcast experience, and you can click the button for an executive summary, key points with timestamps, industry trends, related contents, and you can ask the episode a question. But if you want to hear straight from Elise and Jason, you're going to want to register for the BlackBerry Radar webinar that we are doing next week. So hope to see you there. And then Wednesday, right after that, the following day at 1 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be going live right here with the team of Reveal and one of my favorites, Irina Roska. Now, she's VP of Supply Chain and Operations for Verisight, and she's going to be talking about how the last mile has really helped her in making better decisions faster with her data while collaborating and partnering with Reveal. So go and click that attend button, even if you can't attend live, and we will send you the recording afterwards. Where else are we going to be? Well, this is the webinar that I was talking about. It's June 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern. The link is in the comments. Make sure to go and register. And then we are going to be in person at the Samsara Beyond 26 event. Now, we've got a bunch of events coming up starting in September, which you're going to start to know about over the next few weeks. So stay tuned because we've got a lot to share. I've also, I was in the Authority magazine just the other day. I did an interview with Chad Silverstein. Now, you heard me talking about our AI interactive podcast experience where we partnered with Google Gemini, and you can interact with our episodes at letstalksupplychain.com. Well, in this article, I do a deep dive into what that actually means for you and how we're using AI within our small business. So if you want to go and check that out, the link is in the comments. And yeah, that was a fun interview. I want to give a shout out and a thanks over to Authority magazine. What else have we got? Oh, we are launching Let's Talk Supply Chain Asia, and we've got some really great names coming up. Now, this is kicking off this month. Faujan is our host over in the region, and we are cooking up some really fun stuff. Now, I'm going to be the first episode for June, and then he's going to be interviewing Dr. Mudasir and Iman over in the Asia region. Plus, we're working on some more launch partners for you so that you can see what's going on over there. And then we're also kicking off and launching Let's Talk Supply Chain Europe. Now, if you haven't followed either of these pages, go and give them a follow because we want to make sure that you keep up with what we're doing in the region. We've got a lot of different things that we are putting into place and super excited about. So go and check that out. The link is in the comments, and we'd love to have you follow us over there. All right. Well, now it's time to go to Camille and introduce our guest for today. Over to you.
Have you ever watched a company buy a smarter tool, then keep making the same decision? The gap was rarely the software. It was the space between data, process, people, and what actually happened. Christine built her career inside that space. She never stayed in one lane. She moved across the whole system. She started in engineering and manufacturing, then moved through sourcing, planning, transformation, product strategy, marketing, and ecosystem work. For years, people tried to put the pieces into a tidy box. Christine kept connecting the dots they could not see. That became the supply chain whisperer, a name that matched the work. People, process, technology, and operations finally speaking together.
Today, she helps organizations move past implementation and toward adoption, orchestration, and measurable outcomes.
Her message today is faster decisions do not mean better outcomes if the system is misaligned. Please welcome Christine to Thoughts and Coffee.
Oh, I forgot to bring you up on stage. Christine. Oh, we're going to do this. There we go. Christine, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Sarah. I'm going to be honest. I feel like Camille makes me seem so much bigger than what I really am in real life, but I love it.
Listen, you are the supply chain whisperer, and you are a pretty big deal. So, and everybody, who's a guest on this show, we want to make sure that we're telling their story, giving the background, giving people what they want to know about the guests on the show. I mean, we only have 30 minutes, and the fastest 30 minutes in supply chain. So why not? Why not?
I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And you're in Germany. What are you doing in Germany? And thanks for making the time for us today.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked, but the audience may not know that I jumped into the world of consulting about 9 months ago with Miebach, and our global headquarters are here in Frankfurt. So I'm actually at my first annual meeting. There's like 105 of us here. First opportunity I've had to really meet some of my colleagues and the thought leaders and the subject matter experts that are driving supply chain improvements all over the world. So it's been really fun thus far.
Love that. Love that. Well, I want to give a shout out over to Kathy. We've got quite a few people on our Instagram pages as well. We've got Mazin, Laura, Spectra One, DVL, Transport and Logistic 360. It looks like they might be French. Not sure if they're in Montreal or in France. Chelsea, Vania, Navnath, Riz, and Rima. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, let's get into our poll of the week. So we ask you a question every single Wednesday morning across the Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn, and we want to know, what is top of mind for you? And so this question is, be honest, what's the real reason supply chain meetings run long? Now, this is something I have spoken to a lot of people about, and people are very passionate about this topic because, it cuts into people's time. Supply chain leaders don't have a lot of time. They spend most of their time in meetings, and then they have to do their work after hours, which is not good for anybody. So we had 136 votes on this one. I told you this one was popular. 40% of you said quick side topics. 34% said same issue again and again and again and again. 16% of you said nobody has data. Woo. 10% of you said too many spreadsheets. And we had a comment from somebody that said there can never be enough spreadsheets. So I think we are all over the place with this one. Christine, what did you think about this?
What's interesting is we don't have the data, and because I feel like everybody's swimming in data, right? That maybe they don't have the insights, right? Like you have so much data, you don't know what to do with it. But for me, it was always this will only take a minute. This one small thing, and then you know what I mean? It takes the whole meeting, and then you're running late. So yeah.
Oh, I am so with you. Or if we start talking about the same issue again and again, I'm like, really? We need to have another meeting about this? I don't understand. I thought we solved this last time.
It's kind of like let's have a meeting to plan for the meeting that we're going to have. And you're like, what are we doing? Yeah.
And I'm not entirely sure. And I don't want to be rude, right? Because it depends who calls the meeting too.
Well, that is true. Well, the other pet peeve of mine is like somebody will put a meeting on my calendar. They don't give me any context. There's no agenda. There's like, what am I walking into? How can I prepare in advance? And by the way, if I could, maybe the meeting wouldn't take so long. So,
well, and I like the one that you said it'll only be a minute, and then it turns into 15 or 30, and you're like, here we go again.
exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, now we come to the part where we do a bit of a market update. You've been traveling a lot. You've been to a lot of different conferences, right? You've been to Home Computer World, you've been to Gartner, you've been to everything in between. What is everybody talking about? Like, what is top of mind for everybody right now?
I mean, undisputed, we're still on the ramp of the hype cycle for AI. It's all AI, agentic. What can agents do? And then what's the impact going to be on human capital, human resources? So,
well, and I'm glad that we're talking about that today, because I think it's a really underserved part of the conversation, and you and I are really going to get into it. I think the other thing that everybody is really talking about are the refunds, and I know our news desk is going to be covering a little bit about that today. What I didn't realize, though, is there's $166 billion out there, but what was interesting is the part right after it that says plus interest.
Yes, the plus interest. Yeah, it's super interesting to me. And by the way, like customers, we can't get it. And they're basically saying, it's probably not going to flow to us. So it'll be interesting to see how companies leverage those refunds.
I wonder if we're going to see some more sales in retail. Some more discounts, maybe, just because things have been so high for so long.
I don't know. I think it'll be like stock buybacks or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. And you know what else I saw in the news this morning? They were talking about how, I think it was Gen Z is bringing back the mall. Oh. Retail locations are up 57%.
I love that though. Like, I mean, think about it. Things come and go, right? Record stores have started to make a comeback, and people are actually producing like old school records, coffee shops, even like bookstores, right? So, I mean, I think things change. Maybe it's a different iteration, but people need a place to connect. And, I don't know about you, but I grew up before I got my license. My mom would drop us at the mall, and I would meet my friends, and we would walk around and window shop, and, so I think it's good.
So they said that the Gen Xers brought the mall to the forefront. The millennials rejected the mall, and now the Gen Zers are bringing back the mall. And the reason why I say this is because retail and brick to mortar stores are not dead, right? And they're saying that Gen Zers are spending so much time on tablets and phones and electronics that they're craving in person. And they want to go to the mall to see their friends. They want to go to the mall to hang out. But more importantly, they want to go and try on clothes.
You mean they don't want to just have it shipped to their house and then ship it back? No, it's interesting. I think, the models change, right? So I think about, do you remember service merchandise? I don't know if that was a thing in Canada.
No, but we had like the Sears catalog. Maybe? Similar.
I feel like service merchandise was ahead of their time, right? So they had the products, they would have like one of each thing kind of on the shelf, and then the whole back of the store was a big warehouse, and you would go to the counter and you would be like, I want this wall clock. And then like 5 minutes later, it would come out this chute and you would take it home. And so I feel like maybe they were ahead of their time, because basically it was a warehouse, and they were fulfilling demand in a very different way, probably more consistent with the way that, Amazon and other online fulfillment does today. So
I was so surprised. I was so surprised when I saw it on the news this morning, but happily surprised.
Me too.
Happily surprised. Because otherwise, we're going to end up with a lot of real estate that's not being used, commercial real estate. And, what do we use? What do we do with that? So, want to give a shout out to Susan. She's joining us from Orlando. She's given us our first fire emoji. Now we've got to get to our first article. Now, hang on to your hats, people, because we're going to be talking about this one for quite a bit. And I want to hear from you on this one, because we're talking about, will entry-level jobs be replaced by AI? Now, Christine and I have a lot of opinions on this, and I think it's really going to depend, but I also think it's going to take away our strategic thinking and critical thinking capabilities for the next generation. So, Christine, I'm going to let you go with this one first, and then we'll sort of talk about it back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's talking about AI, right? And Gartner, really talks about, well, what's happening with entry-level roles.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's interesting about this is the fact that this is the same discussion that people were having at the onset of the first industrial revolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen to farm workers? What's going to happen to craftsmen and whatnot? And you know what? There was disruption. There was pain. People had to find, different ways of working. But ultimately, we actually grew the labor force. We grew employment, right? And so I think Gartner makes a lot of really great points about the models are shifting. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we need to be thinking really critically about how do we provide training, context. Maybe it's supply chain apprenticeships. Maybe it's simulation. I'm very concerned that I think we already had a group of people in the workforce that thought that they could bypass kind of those analyst roles and those, kind of clerk roles and whatnot. And therefore, we are quite frankly making poor decisions, kind of siloed, functionally specialized decisions that really drive supply chains in the wrong direction.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And it's kind of funny. We're coming up with these fancy words for it. I was kind of laughing a little bit. I was chuckling a little bit to myself because, like, talent strategy reinvention, like that's what they're calling this right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Redesigning roles, skills, workforce processes. They think that it's going to be a reduction in workforce by 51%. But here's the deal. We want to be able to give people more opportunities for critical thinking and strategic thinking and being creative and more innovative. And that's what we have talked about AI doing. But what happens when you've got somebody that comes into the industry that has only learnt from being at college or university? They don't have hands-on experience. They're being given an AI tool to use, and you have to review it and make a decision as to whether this is the right information or not. If you don't have a background in it, how do you do that?
Well, I mean, you would hope that we develop the training, the education, the opportunities to simulate maybe that type of learning. I mean, look, AI is an incredible tool for both, serving up, if you will, options, but it's also an incredible tool to educate yourself and to learn, context, because I actually think that's the part that's going to be missing. Like for me, right? I started out in maintenance. Like I was in the factory. I understand what happens when a piece of equipment is down or when you have a bottleneck and things get backed up, right? And I carry that with me now, 30 years later. I think that kind of experiential learning maybe disappears, but then maybe it's virtual learning, right? And it's, you're going to get a similar experience, but in a virtual environment where, quite frankly, you're not actually breaking things, but you're still learning, right? So I saw something recently from a company, I think it was In Change, that is doing that type of simulation and, virtual problem solving and running companies, virtually so that you can get the experience. I think we're going to need more of that, quite frankly.
Well, and if you think about the Gen Zers going back to the mall, How is that going to change? How are they going to expect their work experience to be? Is it going to
Well,
be flexible because they want to be in the office and they want to be around people and that's how they're going to learn as well? Is by the knowledge that can be imparted through conversations?
I mean, I think that's part of it. I also think just, we're living in an age where disruption is the new normal. And I think, we can make predictions and we can try to do things that we think help and support people, but no one has a crystal ball. No one knows exactly, where things will settle. And it's the reason I go back to literally the economist, the analyst, the journalist in the late 1800s. They were making predictions for mass unemployment and how would we account for that. And yes, there was disruption. Yes, there was pain. But I think we're resilient. People in general are resilient. We will create new opportunities. We will create new things to work on.
Yeah.
The other side of the equation, Sarah, is people are having less children. So we actually were headed towards this great sandsemic where there are not enough people to do the work, to sustain the lifestyle and the consumer demand that we have. So to some extent, we need AI because there are not enough people to do the job.
Yeah. Well, just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. Ina, who is a CEO in the industry, she commented on my post. We've removed thousands of longshoreman jobs with containers coming in and pools of typists with personal computers taking over. We may get to a state of entry-level jobs starting at a higher entry point of productivity and outcome. I had mentioned universal base salary. I've mentioned it on the show before. That is potential, and that's potential for coming. But you're right. We aren't having enough children. And that was brought up in a think tank that I was part of just the other day. So a couple of interesting things to think about. One is if you go to an interview, a job interview, and the other person has 1,000 hours on Claude and you have 30, they are most likely to get that job. So one thing to think about is to play around with the LLMs and to understand how it can optimize the job. The other thing is we had a post by Amos in Secret Society of Supply Chain, and they said Asia's warehouse labor shortage runs deeper than the PMI recovery story implies. Manpower Group reports 77% of APAC employers cannot fill positions in manufacturing in Asia Pacific. So if you're looking for a supply chain position, there is a talent shortage in the Asia Pacific region, and so that could be a place to look. Anyways, this has been a great discussion. Christian is is giving us all sorts of great tidbits over on YouTube. So I appreciate you for doing that. Any last comments before we get to the next one?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that labor shortage is not unique to Asia Pacific. I mean, we at MEBOC have been trying to hire supply chain talent, the whole time I've been here, and the talent it's not there. It's not available. Right. So I think that I don't think it's nearly as dire as what some people maybe want to believe. Right.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. All right. Let's get over to the news desk. Diane and Julian, what are the top 4 news stories for today?
Sarah, we've got 4 desk stories: tariff refunds, procurement AI, tariff routing, and freight fraud. First up, tariff refunds are showing up in federal spending data. CBP withdrew about $17 billion by May 20. April's total was $3 billion.
Yahoo Finance says eligible refunds could reach about $166 billion plus interest.
Importers need to decide where that cash goes: inventory, pricing, margin protection, automation, or risk reserves.
Finance, procurement, and planning teams need one refund plan. Otherwise, the cash gets absorbed instead of deployed. Next, procurement leaders are warning companies not to overspend on AI before proving the use case. At ISM World, executives said the business problem should come before the AI tool.
The path was simple: start with low-risk pilots, measure the result, then scale what works.
Torre's John Eustace said AI agents could eventually support insights on 60% to 70% of bids.
Procurement teams need clean data, clear workflows, and buyer trust before they hand decisions to AI.
Also on tariffs, CCJ says tariff-optimized supply chains are becoming a win for trucking. Shippers are shifting towards shorter routes, North American trucking, and faster cross-border freight to reduce tariff exposure.
Over-the-road freight reached 32% of import value. Ocean share dropped 10 to 12 points. Average HTS classification complexity rose from 6 to 11.6 sequences per entry.
Trade compliance, transportation planning, bonded warehousing, and finance now need one operating plan. Last, freight fraud is getting more expensive, and AI is making the threat harder to catch. The recap estimates $800 million in annual freight fraud losses.
The risks include AI-generated documents, voice cloning, digital identity packages, and sophisticated phishing.
The three main threats are double brokering, identity theft, and cargo theft.
Freight teams need identity checks, document validation, and fraud detection built into daily workflows.
That's the desk. Refunds, AI adoption, tariff routing, and freight fraud all require tighter execution.
Sarah, back to you.
Love that. Those are some pretty big stories. I mean, and those are some pretty big numbers. $800 million in losses. AI deep fakes. I mean, if we're talking about AI on a variety of spectrums,
Yes.
and I know we need to get to our next article, but highly recommend you go and look into those stories a little bit more, because that's what's happening in supply chain this week. All right, let's get to our last article. Now, we're talking about a study that you guys did about supply chain transformation. You said something before we went live that I thought was so interesting. Can you share that with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, the study showed that companies, if you will, are doing 5.7 transformations over a 5-year span. So what that really means is every year they're doing some type of a major transformation. That's a huge shift in the market. Previously, about every 5 to 8 years, people were doing a large transformation. So it really kind of shows us that transformation is the new normal, right? Just like this. And I think it's being fueled by disruption and economic model changes and geopolitical changes. And all, it's the perfect storm, if you will. And I personally think it's really good for supply chain professionals because it keeps it interesting, right?
It does keep it interesting. I'm a little bit worried about the leaders, though, that have to run these transformations every year on top of everything else that they're doing. So I really, really, really hope that organizations and the C-suite are going to give them some help to be able to do that, because that's quite a bit to go through. I mean, 80% being change management, it's all about the people, right? It's not necessarily the tech, the knowledge in technology that you need. You need the knowledge in people, and to be able to get people behind the change. And people are going to get burnt out, and they're going to get exhausted from transformation as well. And so how do you manage that? Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you, is it large transformation or is it smaller transformation? Because in this report, you said 2/3 are replacing major IT systems. So I wonder if there's smaller transformations more often.
I think it's a mix, and it depends on the company and the market and the industry that the company is in. We see a variety, quite frankly. But a lot of companies, even, they may do like a major software implementation, but then they come back 3 years later and they're re-implementing or changing the implementation because their business model or the climate within their industry is changing. That is actually, so, we used to do, as an example, like a planning, like we would, rip and replace once every maybe 10 years. Now we're really seeing like every 3 or so years, you may keep the core technology, but you're changing the way that the technology is working, and you're adding, really new capabilities and features. The other part of that, though, is think about what we talked about in the beginning, which is AI and agents and agentic, and reducing some of the routine, mundane tasks. Well, that actually does free people up to do more of this transformation work, more of the change management.
That is a really, really good point. I want to point out a couple of other stats, and we've put the link in the comments for you so you can go and check out this study yourself. 50% warehouse automation, 41% S&OP revamp, and 38% on AI. So AI is the third on the list, but I think it probably touches all of those above, including warehouse automation and S&OP revamp.
And honestly, you shouldn't do an AI project. If you're doing an AI project, you're making the wrong investments. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? What is the part of your business that needs to be impacted? And then is some type of, AI approach to that appropriate?
I love that. I love the air quotes. I can't believe we're at the end. We did not get to 3 articles today, and that's okay because I'm going to shift it to another day, and you guys are still going to get the information, I promise. Christine, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Germany. We always appreciate you here at Let's Talk Supply Chain and for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I can't believe we've already burned 30 minutes. This has been so much fun. So thank you. I appreciate you.
And thanks everybody for joining us this week. I'll be back next week with another amazing guest and lots of information, the top news stories of the week. So stay tuned and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.